I'm joined here by Exeter City manager Matt Taylor. Matt, how are you today? You okay?
Yeah, I'm really good. Wet through, I'm afraid. Same with everyone. I think everyone's got soaked at training this morning, but in good spirits.
Is it torrential down there at the moment in Exeter?
Yeah, first time in a couple of months. Everyone spoke about the Indian summer, which was never ending. But as soon as October comes around, the rain comes. So a few of our players mentioned this morning it's the first time they've seen rain down in Devon. So hopefully it won't last too long.
What's it like when it's raining outside? You start to see a few of the players a little bit less keen to train and go out and things. Have you got a
Well,
few like that, or?
exactly that. I saw a woolly hat for the first time in months. Giovanni Brown had a hat on today. He said it was more to protect his hairstyle than actually to keep him warm. But he had a hat on for the first time. There's been no tights and gloves as yet, but I'm sure that's not too far away.
You have to stamp out on that kind of thing at this stage, surely. It's still September. That's a disgrace.
I know. Especially being a northerner myself, we pride ourselves on being a little bit tougher. But this new generation of players are a little bit different, and they've got to be comfortable, and they've got to be sort of pretty relaxed when they go out to training. But the moment the real work starts, and that's the possession and small-sided games, then we ask them to take those hats off.
You stand there in a shorts and t-shirts, try and make a point of what it's like to be the manager, to lay down a marker.
I used to do that, but then I realised when I'm doing less coaching and more sort of management and stepping back a little bit more, then you get cold pretty quickly. So it sounds soft, I know. But when you're standing and watching sessions, and especially days like today's, there's nothing worse than being stood still in the cold and the wet. So now I do wrap up warmer than I used to do.
I mean, it seems like spirits are high in the Exeter camp at the moment. How would you rate your season so far?
We're only 9 games in, so we're barely just started. Look, let's be honest in terms of the turnover in the club over the off season. We lost some probably influential players, and when I say influential players, if you looked at the good Exeter City teams of the last couple of seasons, you'd expect to see Jake Taylor's name on the team sheet, Ryan Bowman, Randall Williams, Nicky Law, Joel Randall last season. So they're significant players to lose due to whatever reason. So we had to recruit well in the off season. And whenever you recruit a larger number than usual, it takes a little bit more time. Obviously, at the start of the season, we had COVID and injury issues. And the squad was very thin. So we managed to stay pretty level despite not winning for the first 3 games and not scoring for the first 3 games. But the past 5 or 6 games, we've got our squad together and got better personnel out on pitch and performed a lot better in recent weeks and picked up a couple of good performances, remained unbeaten throughout September. And we're looking forward to what's next now.
So you mentioned you lost a few, you brought a few in. Are you happy with how things have gelled so far? So how did that planning happen over the summer in terms of who you knew you were going to lose, who you had to bring in? What was the recruitment like? What was the strategy there?
Um, he's forever changing and forever evolving at Exeter City. Look, we knew there was going to be interest in Joel Randall, and we wanted to keep him for a little bit longer than what we ended up doing. We wanted him to sign a new contract and maybe see out this season, especially. So we knew there could be interest there. So we had that in our minds when we were recruiting in the off season, even before we sold Joel. We knew pretty early we were going to lose Nicky Law and Jake Taylor and Randall Williams. And then we made the decision in relation to selling Ryan Bowman, who's been a focal point of our attack in the last couple of seasons. But it was his time to move on and to play at a higher level. So they all went with our best wishes. But as that was happening and some of the ones we spoke about were expected, we were trying to recruit good players as well. You can never get like for like. You can never get absolutely perfect replacements. So we had to change slightly the dynamic of our recruitment, and our head of recruitment, Marcus Flickcroft, was outstanding in the off-season and the build-up to the off-season as well. We had a clear set of targets we went for. I can't sit here and say we got all our targets because we certainly didn't. We missed out on a lot of good players like a lot of managers did throughout the country. But we felt we brought in the right type of character first and foremost and the right type of profile to help the team. There's always a reason a player signs for Exeter City. And with no disrespect to our club, it's probably because they need it to happen and they need success when they come here. Either they're young and they need an opportunity, or they're at a certain stage of the latter end of their career where they've had a fantastic career to date, but they're not scrambling for a club, that they're looking at what's next in terms of, furthering their career and prolonging their career. So we get players at a certain time, but then it's up to myself as manager to get the right balance within the squad. And we've always got a foundation of good academy players, and over half of the first team squad are made up of academy players, and more often than not, over half the players on the team sheet on a match day are made up of academy players as well. So that's a perfect foundation for us to build on.
Do you think that's an important part of Exeter City? Do you feel a sense of pride in having worked with the club the way you have in the past? Do you think that's essential to the way things happen down there, essentially?
Well, it's important I point out, it's essential to our survival. We're owned by the trust. We've got no chairman putting money in. So any income we generate from ourselves goes back into the playing budget, the facilities at the stadium, there's a staffing, the business. So it's vitally important. And we have to keep selling players. Like I say, it's our best way of producing income and improving the budget and improving all the aspects of the football club. So the example of Joel Randall, where he played between 20 and 30 games for ourselves. We always want to sell them at a certain point, and that's when they've contributed more with the first team than maybe what Joel did. He was outstanding for that one season, but our fans would have loved to see him for more than one season. And it was ironic because our fans weren't in the stadiums last season to see him play live. So we want to keep hold of our good young players and sell them when the time's right. I'm sure we'll have examples in the future, just as we've got fantastic examples in the past. And not only have they left our club to go into a better level or so-called better club, they've gone on to bigger and better things themselves, whether that's international football or Premier League football or consistent Championship football. There's a lot of examples in the Football League and in the Premier League at the moment who've come through our pathway and our development scheme.
Obviously, this is your 4th season in charge of Exeter now. How do you feel like, how would you sort of assess your journey so far with the club?
I mean, it's interesting. They obviously took over from Paul Tisdale, who'd been here for a dozen years and done a fantastic job on the back of obviously a devastating playoff final defeat, the second one in 2 years. And then you've got to rebuild the squad and the club as well. We came so close to the playoffs in my first season, narrowly missing out by a point. We lost our leading goal scorer midway through that season, where Jaden Stuttley had a clause in his contract, and that took a big hit on the squad and the way we played. We also lost Jonathan Ford midway through the season. So your two main centre forwards were gone in an instance in relation to that. So the first season was a lot about learning about the league and the squad and our expectations. And then we recruited really well going into that second season, and we'd been in the top 3 the majority of that second season up until a couple of weeks before the suspension of the season. So timing certainly didn't help our situation or our cause. We ended up getting to the playoff final, but getting beaten. Really poor performance on the day, and fantastic performance by Northampton, and convincingly beaten in heartbreaking fashion. And then off the back of that and the pandemic, we had to cut the squad, the budget, and released a majority of senior players and went really young last season. And last season was a transitional year where the youngsters played no matter what, and they did fantastically well for 3/4 of the season, just ran out of steam towards the end of the season. So it's been an interesting few years, but any manager will testify managing through the pandemic is just, it's changed football, and it's changed the way we've worked, and it's changed our approach to what players we can put in at certain times, and be more and more confident in our own system, our own structure, and our own identity, which we've touched upon already, which is promoting young players and giving them the opportunity. And now we're in a position where we've strengthened the budget, we've strengthened the playing squad, and there's a little bit more expectation on us, because we do expect to be stronger than we were last season, and we narrowly missed out on the playoffs last season. So if we improve on that this season, then we'll hopefully be pushing towards those playoffs, if not the automatic positions. But there's a lot of strong teams in the league this season, and the league has clearly not really settled down as yet, whether we're 9 or 10 games in.
Do you feel like it was the relative inexperience that cost you last season in terms of just dropping out of the playoffs at the end?
To a certain extent, look, we ran out of legs. We didn't have the squad. Once Nicky Lowe went in January, and we had injuries to Randall Williams and Joel Randall, we couldn't cover those positions, and our form unfortunately dipped off the back of that. And it was difficult to watch at times, because for the first half of the season, we'd been fantastic in an attacking sense, scored so many goals, and it'd always been exciting football. And then the second half of the season just took its toll in terms of the physicality of the group, the mentality of the group, and playing 3 times a week when you're down in Exeter certainly takes its toll, because there's a lot of travel involved as well. So we fell just short last season, and like I said, that was then an opportunity to move some players on in terms of a bit of deadwood in the squad. We lost the ones we expected to lose, and obviously sold a couple as well, and that just generated a bit of income to go stronger this year. And it'll take time this year, because we've got a lot of new players and a slightly different identity than in recent seasons. But the potential of the squad at the moment is certainly better than it has been in recent times.
I mean, you've touched on this a little bit in terms of losing players. Is that just the reality of where you are in terms of the league? And is there frustration there that you keep producing these players and then they have to move them on? But is that, do you just accept that's the way it has to be?
It works both ways because the frustration is clearly there's a first team manager who wants to keep all of his best players. You lose your players consistently. I mentioned Jaden Stuttley halfway through my first season, where it was Hiram Boateng and Christy Pym at the end of that first season. And then in terms of the end of last season, losing the more senior players and our better performance over a period of time. And as a first team manager, you want to keep all your good players because they're the ones you want to build a squad and team around. But that's part of being manager down in Exeter. We either lose them through better offers elsewise financially, or we have to move them on and sell them. So that's part and parcel of it, and I can't complain because it's a fantastic model we've got down here. It's certainly the club of opportunity, and then it's the last 18 months has given some fantastic chances to some players probably before they were ready. But they've become ready whilst playing. The likes of Alex Hartridge, Archie Collins, Jack Sparks, Harry Kite, Ben Seymour, Matt Jay, some fantastic examples of players who've been pushed forward and now are the mainstay of our team. And that gives you a sense of pride. So as much as you're frustrated sometimes as a manager when you lose your players, a fantastic sense of pride in terms of what keeps getting achieved, because we always feel we're competitive towards the right end of this league table, and it's a brutal league. It is a really difficult league with some big budgets, some big clubs, a lot bigger than ourselves, but somehow we always manage to be competing towards the right end.
Do you feel like the expectations amongst the fans are realistic for what you're trying to achieve in terms of you've been in League Two for a long time now, obviously not just you before then. Do you think that there's the patience is there to get to where you need to be?
It has to be, really, because we have been in League One before. I was a player in our last period in League One, and we feel if we can get to League One, then we'll have a chance of being sustainable in League One. Whereas you see a lot of clubs who are almost get that yo-yo tag where they have a fantastic season, get promoted, and they come back the following season. So that's what we're working towards, a sustainable framework where if we did get promoted, we'd be able to stay in the league above and compete in the league above. And we feel we're getting close to that. The hardest thing to do is get promoted out of this league. Like I say, I can speak all day long about the opposition and the clubs we're up against. But in terms of where we are as a stature of a club and what players we can attract, we're in a certain position at the start of the season. And we always slightly overachieve. But fans are fans, and they're right to expect and want us to be challenging at the right end of the table and get into League One because it's achievable. We've done it before, and I'm sure we'll do it again. It's my job to make sure that happens sooner rather than later. And
in terms of yourself, is it your ambition to stay with Exeter for as long as you can and get them through those levels? I mean, you're the 14th longest serving manager in the top 4 leagues now. You're the 10th longest serving manager in the EFL, which is crazy when you think about just over 3 years, but that's the reality now. Do you feel like you're going to take as much time as you can to get Exeter to where you want to get them to?
That's my ambition. That's my aim. I'm fully concentrated on taking Exeter to the next level. I was part of it, like I mentioned, when I was a player, and it's a fantastic feeling to move through the ranks with the club. And that's what we're aiming to do with myself as manager and the staff I've got. If it's not this season, I'm sure it'll be in the next couple of seasons because, like I say, the potential in this group we've got now is absolutely huge. And we'll sell more players in the next window or the next window after that. But generally, the squad's at a good age, and we've recruited really well in terms of the plan for the next 2 to 5 seasons. And then whoever's in charge in that period will have a good chance of promotion simply because of what this group of players can achieve. We've got to keep them level. We've got to stay free from injury. You'll need a little bit of luck. Any promotion season, you need a little bit of luck. I alluded to it before when the season was suspended with 10 games left. That was a lot of football still to be played. And when you've been in the top 3, that really hurt in my second season. So hopefully that we'll have no examples of that sort of bad luck again this season. And the players will keep on improving. That's our remit, improve the players every single day. And if they can buy into it as much as we can, I'm sure we can be successful together.
We got loads of questions into you from League of 72 followers on YouTube and Twitter and all other kinds of social media platforms. I'm just going to go through a few and ask you now if that's okay. I'll start with, what's the best and worst part of your role of managing Exeter City? You can't have a go at me for these questions. These are coming from fans, remember, so you have to answer them as well.
I suppose we might have touched upon it there when we said about how we lose a lot of good players. And as a manager, that's something which is difficult to comprehend and to deal with and to replace. The hardest thing to do is recruit players down in Exeter. So it works both ways because there's nothing better than seeing our young academy players go on to bigger and better things and get an opportunity at a higher level. But you still want them to achieve first and foremost with Exeter City. A big problem we have is how players can become distracted and disillusioned, where they think they can go at an earlier point when what we feel is necessary. And what I mean by that is there's always interest in our young players, and we can't stop the interest. But with influence from managers, agents, outside sources, players' heads can become turned quickly. And that's a real job of mine, to keep players concentrated and focused on what's next, and taking care of business first and foremost, and then looking at what can become the norm in relation to their future. And their future might well be away from ourselves, but they need to be successful with our club first and foremost. So there's challenges every single day, more so around the transfer windows, and that is obviously a frustration. But then if a player goes on to a higher level and achieves what we feel they can achieve at that level, then we're really proud of that fact. But you're always reacting as a manager. So one of our biggest discussion points as a group of coaching staff is to understand what's coming next. So we've got a plan in place ready for January. We'll have a plan in place ready for the following window at the end of the season as well. And preempting what offers will come in for what players, and when it's the right time to move a player on, then we will do.
You're going to hate answering this one. Who's the most gifted player you've worked with as a manager of the club so far?
Look, Nicky Law was outstanding. He was outstanding, and he was coming towards the end of his career. But we've got some good footballers in our ranks this season. We signed Giovanni Brown from Colchester, who's an incredibly talented lad. I think he's got the most assists in the league already this season, and we're looking to add to his game. So we're looking to add goals on top of those assists as well. So there's been some talented footballers. Joel Randall, obviously, we sold him to Peterborough in the off season. He was a talented boy. And then in terms of probably what I call a niche in the market, Jaden Stuttley was outstanding in the 18-yard box. All he had to do was cross the ball into the box, and he'd get his head on there. And more often than not, his finishing was excellent for the level. So there's probably 2 or 3 there I've mentioned who've been top players for this club. You're
not going to pick one, are you, if I push you for one?
Look, I would have loved to work with Nicky Law 10 years ago, when he was a 19, 20-year-old. I think we got him when he was 29. And that's no disrespect to Nicky, because he was still fantastic for me as a manager and this football club. But, you always get players at certain times, which we spoke about. And I would have loved to work with Nicky Law as a teenager or in his early 20s.
What are your favourite ways to prepare players for a match?
Just try and recreate what we expect they'll come up against on the weekend. Throughout the week, our preparation is a little bit in relation to the opposition. Our normal principles as the team we can work on and work towards. And then just our habits. The characteristic of the team is absolutely key. No direct philosophy in terms of dependent on opposition. It's all about our characteristics, our DNA. All out in terms of what the players give on a daily basis, but especially on match days. And we allude to that throughout the week. So we like I say, we try and recreate certain situations and scenarios that they'll come up against on a Saturday. But you can never preempt too much in relation to opposition work. That's something I've found in my first few years as manager. Whether it's suspensions, form, injuries, formation changes, you can't read too much into the opposition, because there's probably too many games at this level to do that. So we have to concentrate on ourselves and putting our best out there. If we feel we put our best performance in individually and collectively, then we've got a chance of beating anyone in this league.
If you could pick an Exeter five-a-side team from your time at the club, who would make it?
Oh, what a good question that is. A five-a-side team.
So it can be from your playing days there, from your management, whenever you want, 5 players in any formation. It's up to you. You're in charge. You can pick yourself in it if you want.
Well, I'll probably leave myself out. That's a great question. In terms of five-a-side, probably Christy Pym. Not the biggest stature in terms of a goalkeeper, an outstanding goalkeeper. So if it was a five-a-side game, I'd probably pick Christy Pym. In terms of defenders, I'll go with some of the old ones. I'd probably pick Rob Edwards and George Friend. Experience of Rob Edwards, and then the legs and physicality of George in his early years would have been sensational. They're both left-footed, so we'd have been a little bit lopsided. So I'd probably put a Ryan Harley and a Nicky Law in there as well, 2 technicians. If those 2 were on the pitch at the same time, I'm not sure the opposition would get the ball off them. And then we'd need an out-and-out goal scorer, and that would be a coin toss between probably Jamie Curtin, who was one of the best finishers I've played with his feet, or Jaden Stuttley, which we spoke about. The fact that he's five-a-side probably means I'll go Curtin, because it's more than likely going to be on the floor than in the air.
Are you having yourself as manager then, or are you picking Paul Tisdale to lead him?
No, Tiz can manage him. I'll do the defensive coaching.
If you could sign any League Two player currently playing in League Two, who would it be and why?
Oh, there's some good players, out there. I like
Don't
both.
look like you're tapping up someone else's players. But
it sounds like,
yeah.
doesn't it? I like both Cooks at Bradford, the centre forward and the attacking midfielder. The lad Williams at Swindon, international footballer, had a fantastic career. There's a lot of good players out there. I could probably list all the ones we missed out on in the summer. I imagine my list is no different to most of the other managers at this level. And there's a reason we missed out on them. But we're pleased with what we've brought in as well. We think Sam Nombe will turn out to be an excellent signing for this football club and be a good player at this level. I've mentioned Giovanni Brown already. So there's good players within our ranks as well. And it wouldn't be disrespectful, but it'd be too difficult if I named too many opposition players. We'll be playing half of them this weekend.
How important is it for you to have players based locally in Exeter? From another fan who's asked this, is it something you talk about when you're doing your recruitment? Do you think it's necessary? Because I know you've spoken about the geographical challenges as well of the area. How essential is that to you?
It's huge that they have to relocate. Even Bristol's too far away to travel in. Anything over 40 minutes really is too far for a professional footballer to travel in every single day. So we have to make it clear to the players we expect them to relocate down to the southwest. Once they're down here, they really enjoy it. It's just getting them down here. They look on the map. They probably Google map it to see how far it takes them from their home. And it's not only the players, but it's their support networks as well. And it's our biggest challenge. I spoke earlier about how many players we've missed out on, and the location was a huge factor in that. If they can sign for a club which is closer to home on a similar wage packet or a similar contract, they will do, because their safety network is closer and their support network is closer. So it's absolutely huge in relation to that, which is why we get players at certain times in their careers. They need to come down to Exeter City and get the opportunity, whether the opportunity to keep playing and prolong their career, or the opportunity to play league football and to develop their game on the back of that. So I can't hide away from the fact that location plays a big factor in that. But what I will say is that when players do sign and do relocate to the area, then they really enjoy it down here. And then it works both ways, where our reputation as a development club and opportunity club does attract some players. But we have to make it clear to them that we do expect them to stay in the area and enjoy the lifestyle around Exeter.
Bit of a segue into a completely different question here, but another one from a fan. Do you think you benefited from going to university before you became a pro footballer, and how important do you think education is to players?
I feel I've benefited in terms of my football career. My experience of not getting a YTS at 16 and going to college and then university, the educational route probably made me more hungry in terms of achieving what I wanted to achieve, which was become a professional footballer. The fact that I was 24 when I turned professional meant I'd missed probably the best part of 8 years. I was 8 years behind everyone else. So I had to be a different type of professional. And that was fully committed every single minute of every single day. Anyone who watched me play will tell you I wasn't the most talented footballer in the world. But I mentioned before, I had a niche in the market in terms of what I was effective as, which was a good defender and not bad in the air. So I wasn't bad in both 18-yard box. And the fact that I'd missed out on a lot of preparation time as a young footballer meant I had to find a niche in the market straight away and become effective and become selectable. And once I became selectable, maybe my educational background allowed me to understand it a little bit more and understand it a little bit earlier, and to understand what was needed to stay in the game and to stay successful. So possibly my upbringing, but I'd count my parents in relation to that as well. They were a big influence in my characteristic growing up. And the fact that I knew I wanted to go into coaching at a relatively early time in my playing career meant that when I went back to university to do the Masters, meant I had a good foothold in terms of education and the background and the experience of professional football, which has put me in a good position when I came back to the club as a coach and then obviously subsequently as a manager.
Back to the present day, who is the most exciting young player currently at the club?
Oh, well, that's a good question. We got a few. In terms of the most exciting ones, we got two 16-year-olds in Sonny Cox and Harry Lee. Sonny Cox, a centre forward, and Harry Lee, a goalkeeper. They all play at the top level. And then there's a 17-year-old centre half called Alfie Pond, who's going to be a good player. So there's three almost within that under-18s age bracket we train with ourselves on a daily basis who are going to be good players. And then within the first team at the moment, the likes of Archie Collins and Harry Kite and Alex Hartridge, Jack Sparks before his injury was doing really well. And Josh Key, who's had a lot of attention in recent weeks and recent months as well. So some fantastic players I've mentioned and who've all come through the academy. And so is our captain, who was our leading goal scorer in Matt J last season.
And final fan question, and what was by far the most popular one. What is the situation with Sam Stubbs at the moment? Is he going to play this season? Is he what's going on with him?
It's not straightforward. It's probably more complicated than how much time we've got together now. The general crux of it is that he had an operation back in January, before January of last year, and we expected him to be out for a 6-week period. Now, there's been complications since in relation to not the joint line, but the swelling which keeps on occurring when he does exercise. He's not had a further operation. He's had a couple of injections. We tried several different rehab and recovery programs. But the fact of the matter is he's no closer now than he was 6 weeks after that operation. We do expect him to play this season, and we are hopeful that he does play this season. But we still can't quite get to the bottom of what's causing that swelling in his knee. And any footballer or any athlete will tell you that he can't perform or he can't continue when there's swelling which consistently happens on a daily basis. So we do hope he'll play a part this season. It'd be fantastic because he's an outstanding player and a silly good young player who's going to have a good career ahead of him. But that knee needs to be right when he does come back, and he'll get all the time and support he needs in relation to that. But a player we're looking forward to working with.
What is the best and worst thing about working for a fan-owned football club?
It's a good question. Look, the best thing is that everyone's in it together, and everyone's invested in it as well. There's a real feeling throughout the football club, whether that's staff, players, supporters, that they are an integral part of this football club, which they are even more so because they own the football club, obviously owned by the trust, which saved us, nearly 20 years ago in relation to what was happening at the club at that time, and then it took us from strength to strength. But supporters want results; they want promotions. They don't want to keep watching the best players move on to other clubs. So we try and get the right balance in terms of what's achievable and what's sustainable, which is key when you look at other clubs in not only at our level but at other levels. Being sustainable as a trust-owned club is something which, especially during the pandemic and in modern times, is so difficult, but something we're immensely proud of. And then looking forward to what is next was, and right now, what's next now? The stadium's finished, the training ground's on its way to being improved, and the facilities improved. And we hope we can become a sustainable League One club, and I'm sure all our supporters are saying the same thing. But time will tell if we can do that this season or next season. But that's certainly what we're working towards. There's never really any negative aspects about working for a trust-owned club. Other than that, it hurts even more when you get beat or you're not successful. Because like I alluded to, the fact that everyone cares and feels for the club so much, it means it hurts that a little bit more if you're not successful.
So what you're saying is the best thing is the fans care too much, and the worst thing is the fans care too much, essentially. So.
Yeah, exactly that.
You find it harder to pick your team this season? Do you think that there's more depth there? As you said, obviously you lost a few, brought in a few, but are there more selection headaches? Are there more late nights in the office worrying about who's going to be in the 11?
Yeah, I mean, high quality problems. I think that's the right sentence or phrase to go with it. Finally, and something we've been working to, we've got good strength in depth and strength in the squad and off the bench. So whatever personnel have the privilege of starting in that team, know they've got a certain role to play, a certain responsibility, and a certain standard is expected. And certainly compared to last season, where you were just putting bodies out on the pitch and hoping they get through the 90 minutes, it's totally different this season. So I think the players have got a little bit extra in their game this season off the back of it, because there's nothing better in terms of performance than the competition from within. And that's certainly been a strong aspect of our start to the season. And hopefully we'll get stronger, because we've still not seen some of those players I've mentioned consistently on the training pitch or getting game time in the league as yet. So, but then injuries happen as well. Suspensions happen and forms happen. So getting the right balance will be key moving forward. But it's certainly been a pleasing aspect so far.
And what are the goals for the season? Have you made it clear to your squad what you want, what the aims are, or is it just a case of taking it game by game?
No, we're looking to improve on last season, and we missed out. I think it was 2 points at the end of last season. Last game of the season, similar to my first season at the football club, and we have to try and improve on that, and that's what we're looking to do, and that would hopefully put us in the playoff pictures. And then you're looking for more in terms of if the group are capable of getting to the top three. That will depend on the opposition, depend on a little bit of luck, will depend on our form, depend on our personnel staying available and keeping hold of the personnel in January as well. And also strengthening in January, something we've not been able to do in recent seasons. Now we're in a position where possibly we can strengthen the squad in January as well. So keeping the club and this group of players moving in the right direction and consistently improving. If we can do that from where we are right now, then we'll give ourselves a chance. Well, that's what we're hoping for and expecting of. But there's a lot of other good teams and good managers out there who will have a say in that.
Sounds like it's going to be an exciting season for Exeter fans. Matt, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
No
Best
problem.
of luck at the weekend in the Matt Taylor derby against Walsall, and of course for the rest of the season. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers, mate.